So first question I have for you, what's the difference between learning and schooling?
Great. So at Startle, we believe the future of education is about learning and not about schooling. And the definitional difference for us is that learning is an activity or an experience that happens anywhere, anytime, by anyone, whereas schooling is really confined to the place that you go after you get off the bus or that you walk to, and it's only between the hours of 8 and 3.
Sure. So a lot of people talk about rebooting education.
Yeah.
Do you think that it needs to be completely rebooted, or can change start to manifest from within the structure that we already have?
So I think there are probably two schools of thought out there right now. One being the sort of tinker around the edges kind of approach, traditional policy reforms, work with the system that we've got. And then there's another school of thought that is very much on the reboot side, sort of build a new system in parallel. I'm going to say that I fit somewhere in between, because I think, we have to, there's a political reality of schooling to which this country is very attached. There's a large infrastructure which has a variety of sunken costs and entrenched interests around that. I don't think we want to abandon that infrastructure and those institutions, but I think we need to think hard about what we do inside those institutions, what we expect from those institutions, and then how we actually structure them to enable more learning than just strictly schooling. So I think it's an important compromise to think about how you are disruptive but actually work within some of the systematic realities that we have right now.
So on the learning side, how can technology plug into that to affect positive change?
So, the concept of anytime, anywhere learning is a really old concept. I mean, Dewey thought of this in the 1920s, and it was been, part of our history. Actually, when 100 years ago, learning happened at school, it happened in the church, it happened in the community. So I just want to stress that it's an age-old conversation, but the opportunity to actually really think about that in a wholly new and real way is what technology gives us right now. So the power of technology to follow the learner and allow that learner to learn in a museum, learn on the street, learn at church, learn at home, but to tether all of that information together so that we actually can keep some sort of record and profile that then accounts and audits for all the experiences that they're having everywhere never existed until today.
Right.
And so the opportunity for technology to enable this this learner-centered approach to learning is really powerful. And the fact that if we can really push the technology to its limits, and I frankly don't think we're there yet, in terms of adaptive learning, so that things are not just portable, but personalized. That's where the real opportunity space is. And I, as I said, I think we see a few companies who are on the edge of that, but we still have a ways to go. I don't think we've really leveraged the full potential yet.
So that's something that's a bit on the horizon?
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of folks who are thinking very, very hard about this. And I think there's folks who are thinking about it both from sort of a learning sciences approach, but also from a machine learning, computer science approach. And it's only through the marriage of those two expertise that we're actually going to get there.
Now, for the people in technology who are sort of entering into education, do you feel that the people who are looking to affect change in education need to have a background in education beyond just being a student, for example?
No, I don't. And that's not to belittle the experience and the expertise that those who work in education bring to the table. But, it's like any sector that's desperate for change or in need of change. Typically, and this is a very Silicon Valley attitude perhaps, but revolution typically let's say typically comes from without, not usually from within. But I will say that education's a very particular market and a particular sector. It's not just like building a consumer-facing product. I mean, when you say you have a learning product and you're providing a learning service, you have a liability for that, because we're talking about very critical developmental stages for children, particularly if we're talking about K through 12, that can impact really the future of that kid's life for the rest of their lives. So I think, again, I'm very much an advocate and a strong believer in collaboration, and particularly cross-sectoral, cross-disciplinary collaboration. So I don't think every single person at the table needs to have a background or training in education, but I think some people at the table need to have that experience and marry that with the technology expertise, the design expertise, the marketing expertise. All of these pieces are really critical to making the whole.
So the last question I have for you, and plugs into a bit of what you were saying there. If it's okay to not have an educational background as long as you're collaborating with some folks who do, the flip side is there a mistake that tech people tend to make as they move into education spaces, and what are those, and what should they be trying to avoid?
I was just having this conversation this morning. I think the classic mistake that we see when the tech talent comes to us is that they don't know the end user. And so they often get fascinated and slightly obsessed with the technical capacity, and we have to remind them, perhaps the person who will be sitting in front of this or sitting with this is 10 years old or 8 years old, or perhaps even 65 years old, but they don't typically know their end user, and they often don't know the context of use. So that's why at Startle, one of the things that we've tried to do very hard is bring the engineering talent, bring the technical talent into this field, attract them, but then marry them with the designers and the pedagogues who can help them think about how does this actually work in the real use case scenario. And without that, we have seen it happen. We've seen a variety of technologies come out that just never make it beyond an alpha or an early beta because they haven't realized where this product's actually going. So
great. Well, thank you very much for being with us. Appreciate it.